Hey, what's going on? It's your boy BT, and I came here to talk some boxing with the thousands of True School Sports subscribers, or to my brethren all around the world watching this video. Hope you're having a great day as you're tuning in. Do yourself a damn favor, hit that subscribe button, and surely you will not be disappointed. So, we're gonna take I decided to take a bit of a break from talking about Anthony Joshua, Dillian White, Tyson Fury, all those guys, because judging by my comment section in my last Anthony Joshua video, y'all are butthurt. And yeah, y'all about hurt, so don't want to get too much into that. But I wanted to talk about the other fight that happened this past Saturday, because I didn't have a chance to really fully give my undivided attention to it live, because it was on at the same time as White Chisora, and we tried our best. If you were there for the live fight reaction, we had a blast. We tried to pay attention to both fights, but eventually we had to settle in on one, and that fight was White Chisora. But when we did kind of have time to tune into Frampton, Warrington, we saw some brilliant moments in the fight. But now I've had a chance myself to finally sit down for myself, watch the fight, take it in, score it, give my observations, and I thought I'd share those observations with you guys. So let's get started, man. Frampton, Warrington. First of all, I think you got to give Josh Warrington a ton of credit for fighting Carl Frampton, because first of all, it was a massive fight in the UK. It was a big fight in the UK, but also, I think in boxing, when a guy gets a world title and he decides to defend the belt right away against someone the caliber of Carl Frampton, that deserves praise, that deserves credit. So massive credit goes out to Josh Warrington for taking on this challenge that he really wanted and that he sought after. It was a really good fight, We'll start on round one. Round one was interesting. Warrington, I thought in the first two rounds of this fight, he set a really great tone. In this round, Warrington does a good job showing Frampton a lot of feints early on. Landed his jab early and often. And in the middle round, he was able to actually hurt Frampton with the barrage combinations. He was dominant in the opening round, and the tone was set. He had set the tone early on that, look, while there was a lot of talk of there being levels to this and him not having ever fought anybody as good as Carl Frampton, he set a tone early in that first round that, hey, if there is an extra level, I'm in that level, and I'm maybe above that level. He just showed himself to be really game early on. And one thing that impressed me about Warrington is, the amount of feints he was giving Frampton early on. Like, he was feinting up, feinting down, and Frampton was biting a lot of his feints earlier. I think he did. One thing that really won him this fight was the ability to set a good pace, tempo, and rhythm early on. And it took Frampton a lot of rounds to adjust to the pace and the rhythm that Warrington was setting. And as I continue to share my observations, we'll get more into that. But yeah, round one I gave 10-9 to Josh Warrington. Just a really great way to set the tone. Round two, Warrington displays the ability to get off first with his jab, Frampton being held at bay by the Warrington jab. And for the second consecutive round, Warrington had hurt Frampton with the barrage of punches, and he was beating him up once more. So 2 rounds in a row in a big world championship fight, the biggest fight of his career at the Manchester Arena, Josh Warrington is showing the ability to not just touch Carl Frampton, but touch him with some effective, clean, hard punching. And he's got Frampton on the retreat. He's backing Frampton up. He's hurting him. And just really setting a great tone and a great pace early on. Frampton, did a good job to hold his ground and not get hit with too many hard shots, but he was getting hit with a lot of punches because the work rate of Warrington, he throws so many punches, so obviously he's not going to land all of them, but he landed a good amount in these first couple rounds, and the tone was set. You knew, whether you thought Frampton was going to win coming into this fight or Warrington was going to win coming into this fight, you knew early on that Warrington was, in fact, a very live dog after these 2 rounds, and that Frampton had a true fight on his hands. So we go into the third round. I got Warrington up 2 rounds to nothing, 10-9 each round. Going into the third round, I thought Frampton did a better job in this round of controlling the pace, slowing it down a tad bit. But Warrington still was fighting a home for his jab and the body shot. He was crowding him, he was leaning on him, he was just digging to the body. And it was funny because around the third round, as I watched this fight, to myself, I was watching this fight, laid on my couch, watched this fight, scoring it. when I watched Josh Warrington, because you look at his record, and he's had like 20 plus fights, and he only has like what 6 knockouts. But watching him fight reminds me of something I once heard Bernard Hopkins say a long time ago, because I can't remember why or what fight it was, but a lot of people say a reporter had asked Bernard Hopkins. They were saying like, Bernard, you don't have that many knockouts, you don't have the power, you don't have this, you don't have that. And Bernard countered what the reporter was saying by telling the reporter, he said, well, I don't have a lot of knockouts, but I beat people up, like I beat them up, and that quote stuck in my head because that's kind of what Warrington is. He doesn't have that fight-changing power. He doesn't have world-class power, but he knows how to beat you up. He knows how to land lots of punches in succession that are going to accumulate and hurt you and make you tired and wear you down. And he beats you up. It's slow beating, and sometimes those fighters are the worst fighters to fight in boxing. For those of you who have either been amateurs, or if you've been a pro, or if you've even done what I've done in my life, which is just be a guy that goes to the gym, trains to stay in shape, and spars people. You know that sometimes the people that are the worst to spar are the ones that just throw lots of punches that don't necessarily have a lot on them, but they land and they land and they land and they land, so it feels like they have a lot on them. And that's kind of what Warrington does to fighters, and that's what he did to Frampton through the first 3 rounds. So I've given the first 3 rounds to Josh Warrington, and heading into the 4th, Frampton really needs to start taking control of the fight, or else he's going to be down on the cards early. So in round 4, Warrington is continuing kind of what he did in the other rounds. Frampton can't dissect his rhythm, and it's leading to him getting constantly hit with jabs. So again, in round 4, you have Frampton biting on a lot of feints. You have Frampton not being able to dissect the rhythm of what Warrington is showing him, because Warrington would go hot and he'd go cold a lot of times these rounds. Sometimes he's crowding him, sometimes he's moving laterally on the outside. Sometimes he's dipping and slipping. He changed his looks constantly throughout the early parts of this fight, and I think it really played a big role as to why Frampton wasn't able to get off first, not just on the outside, but definitely on the inside in a lot of their exchanges, and they definitely costed him round 4. So four rounds, I give him 4 rounds to Josh Warrington. He's dominating Carl Frampton. At one point in time I was watching this fight, I said, damn, Josh Warrington is outclassing Carl Frampton. Like, that's what it began to look like to me. So, yeah, man, just really good round from him there. In round 5, Warrington continues to outfight Frampton on the inside, getting very good leverage on the body shots. Frampton is trying to hold his ground, but at this point, we've seen the rounds play out. And at this point, Frampton is fighting another man's fight. He's not fighting the fight that works for him, but he's fighting another man's fight. Warrington, through 5 rounds, has been able to show that he can maintain a very frantic pace. He's showing the ability to land a lot of just effective, clean punches. And that's the name of the game. It's clean and effective punching. Ring generalship, defense, effective aggression. He's showing these things throughout the course of the 5 rounds, which is why, for me, it's pretty easy to score most of these rounds. Frampton didn't really have success in this fight until the pace slowed down. When the pace slowed down, Frampton had more success. When Frampton wasn't able to slow down the pace, he pretty much lost almost every round that Warrington was able to push the pace in. So round 5 I gave to Warrington, and then at the midway point of the fight going into round 6, this is a round where I think Frampton had kind of made up his mind and said, okay, well, this is the way this guy fights. He's dictated the pace. Let me try to see if I can hold my ground in here and beat him at his own game. So in this round, these guys spent a good majority of the rounds on the ropes. Warrington was doing a lot of leaning on Frampton, getting him tired, throwing body shots, trying to, he would dip to the left, dip to the right, throw a body shot to the right, come back to the left. But then ultimately, whether Frampton tied him up or his hands were free, he was leaning on him, you see. And in this round, in round 6, he's winning the majority of the exchanges, Warrington. Frampton, I think this is the part of the fight where Frampton, I believe, he's on the inside, he's throwing a little more, he's having more success than he was in the earlier rounds, but he's still being outfought, he's being out-hustled, he's being outlanded by Josh Warrington, by the Leeds Warrior. And, through 6 rounds, I've given Josh Warrington the first 6 rounds. I know the BT Sports card, they had given I think round 3 it was a 10-10 round. Round 4 they gave to Frampton, I think, and they had it like they gave Warrington 4 of the first 6 rounds. One of them was a draw, and then the other one they gave to Frampton. So regardless of whether you go by my card or the BT Sport card, what is clear is that Josh Warrington definitely won the first half of the fight. That much is clear. So just a really good first half of the fight from Warrington. Round 7 is where Frampton began to experience some success in the fight. This is the first round I felt like Frampton had success with his jab, and he actually wound up winning most of their like phone booth exchanges, because a good majority of this fight was fought in close quarters with them foot to foot, chest to chest, shoulder to shoulder, dig into the body. And it was in this round where I felt like Carl Frampton began to find a little bit of freedom. He began to throw to the body with a little bit more conviction, and he was landing, and he began to win a lot more of these exchanges. And I gave him this round. I thought Frampton did a good job in round 7. I thought Frampton, just had a lot of success, and the pace began to slow down a little bit, which I thought favored him. Had he been able to slow the pace down a lot earlier in the fight, I think we're talking about a much different fight. So yeah, that's the first round I gave Frampton. So 6 rounds apiece, 6 rounds to Warrington, 1 to Frampton going into the 8th round. And in the 8th round, Frampton had seemed to figure out some of the Warrington pace and some of his pattern. He's fighting with more freedom and intelligence. He's picking his shots better from the outside, and he's landing clean and effective punches while winning some exchanges. So in these rounds where that Frampton is beginning to win, the pace has went from here and it's come back down to here. And in these rounds, Frampton is beginning to land with the jab. He's beginning to shoot the right hand from the outside. He's beginning to pot shot a lot more, move. And Warrington is not able to sit there and have as much exchanges on the inside with Frampton. And like I said, Frampton, when he won rounds in this fight, he looked really good in the rounds that he won. But he just wasn't able to grab a hold on being the ring general. That's what cost him this fight. The fact that he couldn't dictate the pace in which this fight was fought, because that's the kind of fighter Frampton is. Frampton is he's a rhythm fighter, and he's a fighter that needs to dictate pace to win fights, which is why, like, when he fought Santa Cruz the first time, he was able to win that fight because he pushed the pace. He outworked Santa Cruz, and he was able to make Santa Cruz not fight as a taller man, because he was dictating pace. But in the second fight when he fought Santa Cruz was able to dictate the pace because Santa Cruz began to fight like the bigger man. He began to utilize his jab. So Frampton is a fighter where if you dictate pace with him, if you win that battle of the fight with him, if you win that one area of the fight, more often than not, you're going to be able to put yourself in a great chance to defeat Carl Frampton. And I think that's what Warrington did in this fight. Going into round 9, you have, Frampton beginning to work his way back into the fight. At this point in time on my scorecard, he needs something dramatic to happen. He needs a knockdown. He needs something. Or he needs to really just beat the hell out of Warrington in one of these rounds, get a 10-8 round, because he's already down 6-2 on my card. I've only given him 2 rounds. But in round 9, it was a very tough round to score. I'll be honest with you. Round 9 was one of the more tougher rounds to score in this fight, because it was a round for the first half where Frampton did slow down the pace. Early in this round, you have Frampton pot shotting, moving. The pace has slowed down. He's jabbing pretty effectively, and he's looking pretty good in the first half of the round. And then Warrington, he ups the pace sometime in the middle, some part of the middle of the round. And for the rest of the round, he begins to throw punches in succession. He's backing Carl Frampton up with just these combinations. And what it's doing is not all these punches are landing, but they're for one giving the crowd and the judges the illusion that they are landing, and some of them actually did land. So we're seeing some clean and effective punching from Warrington. We're seeing the work rate kind of return back. But what I think, I gave Frampton this round, and the reason why I gave Frampton this round is because he won the first half of the round, and then he kind of lost control in the middle to latter stages of that round. But even in the chaos of losing the control in the round, he was able to have success on the inside. So even when he was fighting Warrington's fight in the 9th round, he showed himself to have success in the 9th round. And I was very tempted. I never do this. Like, I never do this, but I was very tempted to score in round 9 of this fight a straight up 10-10 round. I never do that. I actually can't even tell you the last time I scored a fight scored around 10-10. I don't do that. I just don't do that. But this round was as close as I came to scoring a 10-10 round, because both guys for half the round fought their fight. But I gave it to Frampton because I think when he fought Warrington's fight, when he fought the kind of style and the kind of way Warrington wanted the fight to be, he was able to have success in doing that, as to where I think Warrington wasn't having success doing that early in the round. So I gave him that round. So I give him, like, I gave round 7, 8, 9 to Carl Frampton. He, at this point, 6 rounds of 3. Warrington, all he has to do is win one more round and avoid a knockdown, and he has his fight won on my scorecard. So going into the championship rounds, Warrington gets back to basics. He pushes the pace a little earlier in the round, because he started pushing the pace a little bit later in round 9. He pushed the pace a lot earlier in round 10. He begins to back up Frampton. He's pounding the body, and then he kind of he begins to win exchanges again. And by this point, you kind of see Frampton like huffing and puffing, and for good reason. This guy was throwing so many punches, and even when he wasn't throwing punches, he was like, it was like watching a rabbit in a freaking on a farm or something. He's just like this the whole fight. Either he's here or he's here or he's here. Like he showed excellent conditioning in this fight, Josh Warrington. And this is the round where I think he got back to basics, and he began to start finishing strong in the fight. So I get that round to Warrington. So effectively, I've given Warrington the fight at this point, heading into the 11th round. I have him up 7 rounds to 3. In the 11th round, Frampton, at this point, he's showing some decent defensive ability. Might be and this one was interesting, because this is a round where the punch output wasn't high, where the work rate from Warrington wasn't high, but it was in this round where Warrington, I think, showed his class as a fighter, because it was a round that wasn't conducive. It wasn't something that was gonna play to his style, and he showed the ability to have success in this round. In round 11, he found ways to land clean and effective punching, whether it be with the jab, whether it be body punches, pot shots. The punch output wasn't very high from either fighter in round 11. But Warrington, in this round, in a round with low work rate and low activity from both fighters, he was able to land the cleaner and effective punches. So I actually want to give him round 11. So very good round. I think that round 11 right there from Warrington is very telling of the fighter he can still become, because his name's going to be attached with some big fights moving forward. And he's going to need to know how to win rounds in different ways, and I think he showed a different way he can win a round in that particular round right there. So that round right there was very telling to me. And then in round 12, Carl Frampton just looks kind of spent at this point, but he's doing his best. Warrington's work rate's still high. He's changing angles on the inside. Kind of like we would see like I'm obviously not going to compare him to Lomachenko, because he's not nowhere near as skilled as Lomachenko, but I'm saying the way Lomachenko kind of pivots his body and changes angles on the inside, we saw Warrington doing that in the 12th round, landing to the body, out hustles and outworks Carl Frampton in the 12th round, and I gave him that round as well. So my final scorecard for Josh Warrington, as he defends his belt for the first time against Carl Frampton, was 117-111. It was a little bit wider than the judges had it. I know one judge had it 116-113, I think, or 115-113. The other two judges had it 116-112. I had it a little bit more wider than that. I just think Warrington's pace, his work rate, his ability to offset Frampton and what Frampton was trying to do for so many rounds. The consistency throughout the rounds was enough for me to give him that many rounds. And fair play to him, man. He's shown himself to be a true champion this year. Fighting Lee Selby in a fight where a lot of people thought he was out of, where he was in over his head. Then same thing again, Carl Frampton, a lot of people thought he was in over his head in this fight. And he shows himself that not only he's a champion, but he's a legit champion. And Josh Warrington is going to be pushing on for some bigger fights in 2019. His name's being linked to the likes of Oscar Valdez, to the likes of Leo Santa Cruz, to the likes of Gary Russell Jr. And you know what? In all 3 of those fights, whether we're talking Valdez, whether we're talking Santa Cruz, or whether we're talking Russell, this guy is a live dog in all those fights. Because of his work rate, because of his movement, because of his fighting spirit, his ability to not necessarily trust his power, because he doesn't fight in a manner where you would say like, oh, this guy believes in his power, because he goes to the body. He's an intelligent fighter. He's not like Jermell Charlo, who just headhunts. No, this guy knows that he's not a big puncher, so he goes to the body. It sets up the head, and he just wears you down. And I like Josh Warrington, man. I really mess with him, man. He's a hell of a fighter. got a great attitude towards boxing. And as he's shown this year, he wants to fight top fighters. And I think next year, he'll be in even more important fights and bigger fights. And that's what it is there. As for Carl Frampton, you know, I don't want to say he's done, but I think we've seen the best of Carl Frampton already. I don't necessarily see him getting to the level he was in 2016. But fair play to him, man. He's had a great career. He's been in big fights. He's been in important fights. He's been someone that, as a boxing fan, he's one of those guys I feel like every fan should respect. Because he's been in big fights, been in important fights, he's been willing to fight the best. And he was just out. The style matchup for him, I think, was just not a good style matchup for him. Where does he go from here? I don't know, man. You know, to be honest with you, if we go back and we look at Carl Frampton's like recent history, you know, he's lost to Warrington. He's been in some important fights here. He had that one fight with, what's his name? I can't remember the guy's name right now. He fought the guy, the Mexican guy. I think it was Alejandro Gonzalez? I forgot his name right now. The Canelo's friend. Remember that guy's name, Alex? The Mexican guy Frampton fought? I don't remember his name right now. But yeah, he fought that one Mexican fighter not too long ago. And he didn't look so good against him. And I just think, like Frampton can't get no better. Like, he is what he is. He's had a good career. And he's shown himself to be a dignified champion, a dignified warrior. Because when he lost to Warrington, he didn't sit there and say he had a bad night. He didn't sit there and say, like, oh, you know, I didn't follow my game plan. I was tired. I'm old. No, none of that bullshit. No. Carl Frampton just said, look, he was a better man that night. He's a fantastic fighter. He punches a lot harder than you would think with the 6 knockouts. And I hope in his career he goes on to unify and do great things. Like, shout out to Carl Frampton, man. Like, and that's probably the one big takeaway I have from this whole fight promotion is, like, these guys didn't make a lot of noise. They weren't dickheads to each other. They were quietly confident about their skill sets. They talked about it. They went in the ring. They put on a fantastic fight for the fans. They put it all on the line. And after the fight, they respected each other. And I think, like, that's what boxing needs more of. I don't think that gets celebrated enough in boxing because it's not the sexy thing. You know, we're all attracted to controversy as human beings because that's the sinful nature of man. But when we see two fighters go out there, fight 12 hard rounds, give you a great fight, and then have the respect and decency to really recognize each other after the fight, you know, that is to be celebrated, that is to be cherished, and that is to be applauded by us as boxing fans. So that's my review of Joshua Warrington, Carl Frampton. Joshua Warrington defends his title in a really fun, entertaining fight. He legitimizes himself even more as a champion by defeating Carl Frampton, and looks forward to a big 2019. So that's my review. My final score, the True School Sports, the Brendan Taylor scorecard is 117-111 in favor of the Leeds Warrior himself, Joshua Warrington. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below about this fight, about any of my observations, anything you may agree or disagree with. Let me know what you think about Joshua Warrington. Like how does he match up with the likes of Oscar Valdez, Russell, Santa Cruz? I think he matches up with all those guys, particularly a guy like Valdez. You know, I think Valdez is naturally stronger than Warrington, but Valdez has very leaky defense, and he's vulnerable to get hit, as he's shown in a lot of his fights. So I think that's going to give Warrington a lot of a big chance to win if he does fight a Valdez. He fights Gary Russell Jr. You know, Gary Russell Jr. is to me the way I see Gary Russell Jr. is he's like Carl Frampton, but he's a more athletic version of Carl Frampton because he's the same kind of fighter. He's a guy that likes to pick his shots, likes to work at his own pace. He doesn't like when you push the pace, but he's a little bit more athletic, a little bit more skilled than Carl Frampton. So I think that's a more interesting fight. I would give Warrington a chance in that fight. And then against Santa Cruz, that's just going to be a barrage of punches from both fighters. I can see Warrington winning that fight as well. So yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Take the time to subscribe. And like I say in every single video, you can love me or you can hate me. I'm just kidding, Daniel. So until next time, take care, guys.